And I want to understand why that is. Is it simply the studio and the directors, and if we change the personnel behind it, who's telling the story, it can get better? Or is there something inherently, I don't know, cheesy about Christian storytelling? So you're a filmmaker, you do video, you tell stories on screen. I tell stories through writing. So I just want to have this conversation about Christian storytelling. So let's go back to those movies. God's Not Dead, first one and the second one, right?
Sure.
These are like what is this, like 10 years ago, more than?
Oh gosh, probably.
And I think there's a book it's based off of. Obviously, we've heavily researched this. But what was your, when they said, have you seen the God's Not movie, like you kind of did an eye roll, physically or internally. What was that about? What was your, when they said God's Not Dead, the movie, what did you immediately think of?
Well, for one, I think just because I watched it in school, that already docked at some points,
kind of forced.
Yeah, it's kind of like, it's hard to
audience.
appreciate like classic literature because you had to read it for homework and write a report on it. So you're not going to enjoy certain stories in that context. I think the other thing was I brush against the idea of Christian media depicting unbelief or atheism in an antagonistic way. I think that's just really unhelpful. A, just from an evangelism standpoint, and B, because it feels almost callous towards people that are wrestling with belief.
Yeah.
And so I feel like a big thing in those movies was, this guy doesn't believe in God. He's evil. He's immoral. He's our antagonist for this movie, and that just doesn't seem like the mission of the church first and foremost. And our battle is not against flesh and blood. It's against powers and principalities and the dark forces, right? So, seeing a jaded college professor forcing people to admit that God is dead or whatever, it just felt, I know it's based off a true story, but that's like someone that's with issues, someone that has reached that belief for a specific reason. And it feels weird to turn that person who has gone through existential spiritual struggle into like a mustache twisting villain that's just out to get the Christians,
Yeah. It's sort of a caricature. It's a very flat rendering of an extremely complex, nuanced topic. And that one is sort of particular to the God's Not Dead movies.